It's going to be a long war. First, I'm not an Iran hater. Like all people and places, Iran has good and bad. So if you believe Iran deserves any of this, maybe you should stop watching. Or if you believe Iran is easy to defeat, you won't like what I have to say. In general, everything I see on the news is it's alt history. It's an alternate reality. So I'm just going to give you my views here and why it's going to be a long war. I've been saying for a few years we're in World War III. Why it is, in my sense, maybe like the third shoe to drop. So let's start with the old saying that one is a tragedy and many are statistics. I think that was maybe the Russian. Oh, I should say that because I'm not going to blank on Stalin, right? Thousands are a statistic or whatever. So now that the first few Americans have been killed, the rest are only statistics, right? I mean, I don't even think there's that much of people caring at the moment, even with just few, but the numbers will just pile up and people will just get used to them, just like we did during the Russian war with Ukraine, right? So in the beginning it was like, oh well, Russia only lost a few thousand in Afghanistan. It's gone past a few thousand. Wow, like the war is going to end, and now casualties are up to like 1.2 million or whatever, maybe 400,000 dead. Who knows? Anyway, that's what I think we're about to see as this goes on. No one cares what happens to anybody in Iran. So any of the news about wanting regime change or anything like that, no. I mean, take the Israelis. I mean, they didn't care if tens of thousands of defenseless women and children were killed in Gaza by bombs or starved today. So why would anybody care about the Iranians? They don't. I mean, that whole sense of outrage in society is completely gone. In America, it's more for apathy. In Israel, it's more just too much of the population has this lifelong, hatred of the Palestinians or blame of the Palestinians and all the rest of it. So for this war, nothing is worse for real estate development in the stock market. So Trump will want out. He wants out by tomorrow, I believe, as soon as possible. The reason Trump never wanted war or went to war in his first term is that he always wants to be the center of attention. He doesn't want the generals to all of a sudden take the spotlight. And he was younger then and more with it, so he's able to stop it. But now he's not. He's too old, too easily manipulated. So they've manipulated him into this action, special military operation. And just like anyway, it's going to be difficult for the stock market for the foreseeable future because there are more and more reasons to sell and few reasons to buy. Now, this has been the case for a while, and the stock market is totally disconnected from what I would call true economic reality. Everybody just prints money when they need to borrow money. They're always kicking the can down the road, and that's been going on for a long time. So I wouldn't be surprised if on Monday the market goes down, whatever it's going to go down, and on Tuesday it comes up, not all the way, but come up like halfway. Like it might go back down, end up down 10% tomorrow, and then come up 5% on Tuesday or Wednesday. It would not surprise me. But in general, in the long term, it's toast. But I've been saying this for many years, so predictions, whatever. Now, what I find ironic or interesting is that, when the U.S. first and England first forced Israel onto the Middle East, they of course attacked it or didn't want it as part of as part of the Middle East. They saw militant Jews as a danger to their well-being. Now you can go research this. The Zionists were terrorists, at that time. It's all been forgotten. It's all been like covered up. You can go look up in the New York Times, archives, in all this stuff. But that was the fact back then in the late 40s. So what's interesting, you look at it now, Israel is, you could see why they didn't want this type of militant place in their midst, some 70, 80 years later, right? Now, one of the problems is that the U.S. can't back out of the war easily. I mean, it must save face. I mean, just like Russia, big superpowers, they just can't get out of it. So even though Congress might vote on something this week, I don't think that they'll get enough votes to end the war, because that's just the way it is. I mean, there's a problem with the U.S. system. Obviously, we shouldn't have this much power in one person. That's just absolutely nuts. Like, you should only be able to start a war with congressional approval. And somebody might say, well, it would take too long for them to make a decision. That's why we need it. We can't act fast. And I'd be like, good. We should be able to act fast on war. It'd be good if we don't declare war ever. But we have this thing, and both parties are corrupt. So I mean, nothing's going to happen with it, and the public just apathetically goes on with that. But the U.S. does have a way out, and so I think what it's going to do, many predictions here, even though my predictions are normally wrong, when you get a few right, it's a lot of fun, is that what the U.S. needs to do is make the war between Israel and Iran, which it really is. Though Israel always wants to get the U.S. to attack Iran because, of course, like, why would it want to, it just thinks the U.S. is big enough, and if the U.S. Keeps Iran as an enemy, the U.S. will keep giving Israel weapons and money to keep it as sort of the U.S. forward base in the Middle East. That's always been Israel's thing. But again, Israel, they're not. Netanyahu used to be smart like 20 years ago, but he's not smart. He's an old man, just like Trump. We have all these old men as leaders. They're just not very bright anymore. In fact, they're just they're surrounded by sycophants. They're just, anyway. So what I believe the U.S. will do, so the play for me, if I'm the U.S., is like, okay, I can't just like pretend like I can't like just pull out like I lost to Iran, but I can sort of move it to like, hey, this wasn't really our war. We came to help Israel. Israel doesn't want to get out. Now, Iran will just keep attacking Israel. So, but we're going to pull out. We're going to just let them work it out, which is exactly what the U.S. did with Ukraine. So before you start writing in the comments, oh, no, but we would never do that. We did it with Ukraine, right? We basically supported Ukraine the first couple of years or whatever, and then we're like, no, you're on your own. You don't have the cards. Because what the U.S. didn't really want to face or accept or recognize is that it does not have the power to defeat Russia. That's just a fact. Now you can say, oh, you put boots on the ground. I think that's true. If the U.S. had put boots on the ground in the beginning, it could have pushed Russia out, but it can't now because Russia's just too dug in. So the U.S. can't do anything about it. It's given Ukraine all these weapons. They're not really working. Ukraine is not making their own, so the U.S. is getting out. Now the U.S. is using the same weapons. It thinks, oh, well, we do it with the really, the smart Israelis with their, because like 20% of the Israeli economy is defense. So, I mean, there are a lot of really smart Israelis working on weapons, for that's worth. And so you're just like, oh, well, with them we can beat Iran. Well, they won't be able to, just like Russia couldn't beat Ukraine, right? So, or Ukraine couldn't beat Russia with our weapons. So the U.S. will need to find a way out because that's the kind of sniveling little cowards we are. And so when the U.S. leaves, because China buys basically all of Iran's oil, it's not going to let it fail. So it's just going to supply whatever it needs to defang Israel. The truth is, nobody wants Israel. It brings nothing to the table. It has this huge propaganda machine that's been built up over the decades from very wealthy Jewish businessmen, but that money is running out and people are tired. And so if you strip all that away, like once, and Tucker Carlson's already done this. He's already like basically said, hey, listen, what are we involved with these guys for, right? And so he's not mainstream, but they're going to follow. He's ahead of this, in my opinion. Whether you like him or you don't like him. So I think that's going to happen. that Americans are going to turn on Israel because they're like, why are we involved here? I mean, it's already happening, but it's going to accelerate. And then the middle of the rest of the Middle East, Egypt is only friendly with Israel because we pay them to be friendly. We long ago said, okay, we'll give you money, we'll give you the latest airplanes and whatever, just be friendly with Israel. And they did it. But, they lost money on the Suez Canal when it was closed. So, and all these countries have their own internal economic problems. So I think, when you see in the press, like the Middle East is going to stand behind the U.S. or, no, or they're not. I mean, they want Israel gone. Everybody wants Israel gone. Israel serves no purpose anymore. The purpose it used to have, which is to keep the Middle East in line for the U.S., that's gone because the U.S. can now just do deals with the Middle East on money alone. I mean, that's why Biden ultimately talked to MBS. I mean, it's just like he's like, okay, fine, we'll just keep up our financial relationships. Anyway, the U.S. doesn't have the stomach for this. So, yeah, I mean, Israel finally has a war with Iran. It has always wanted, and I hope it enjoys it because I think it'll be its last.